Good afternoon and welcome to Fisher College Speaker Series. Today it's the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed, a reflective of one of the most shocking, sensational murder trials in Massachusetts history. I'm Stephen Rich, the president of Fisher College. Today we are honored to have with us a man who knows this case better than probably anyone. Charlie DeLoach is the jury number one in the second Karen trial and has served as a jury foreman. We also have here a true friend of Fisher College and a longtime advocate of Fisher is Casey Sherman, a best-selling true crime writer. For the next hour, we'll be exploring the weight of the evidence, the intense pressure inside the jury room, and the explosive allegations of police corruption and lingering questions about the historical case. Please silence your cell phones, and please welcome Charlie DeLoach and Casey Sherman.
All right, thank you. Thank you, President Rich. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Fisher College for those of you who aren't students or faculty here. As President Rich said, my name is Casey Sherman. I'm an investigative journalist, New York Times and USA Today #1 best-selling author of 20 books, including Helltown, Hunting Whitey, the inside story about the capture and killing of America's most wanted crime boss, and Patriots Day, which was adapted into the acclaimed film starring Mark Wahlberg. Now, I've covered over 200 homicides in my career, including the reinvestigation of my aunt's murder in the Boston Strangler case. That investigation is now the subject of the #1 rated true crime documentary in America called Boston Strangler: Unheard Confession, now streaming on Hulu. Today, it's my honor to be joined by Charlie DeLoach, better known as juror number 1, the jury foreman for the second Karen Reed murder trial. Charlie, thank you for your participation today.
Thank you.
So folks, this is going to be a fascinating conversation, and then we're going to open the discussion up for some Q&A. Does that sound good to everybody? Excellent. So let's start with just a little preamble for those of you who don't know about the Karen Reed case. In the early morning hours of January 29, 2022, during an intense snowstorm, the body of Boston police officer John O'Keefe is found lying in the snow outside the home of fellow Boston police officer Brian Albert at 34 Fairview Road in Canton, Massachusetts. The medical examiner rules the cause of death was blunt impact injuries to the head. Now, O'Keefe's girlfriend is arrested, and a Norfolk County grand jury indicts her on second-degree murder, manslaughter, and while operating on the influence of alcohol charges and charges for leaving the scene of personal injury and death. Her name is Karen Reed, and she goes on trial in May 2023, and that trial ends up in a hung jury. But DA Michael Morrissey, he insists he's going to try Karen Reed again. This time, he brings in a special prosecutor. His name is Hank Brennan, who had previously defended and befriended notorious mob boss, cold-blooded killer James Whitey Bulger. Jury selection for trial number 2 begins on April 1st, April Fool's Day, 2025. Charlie, is that the first time that you entered that courtroom in Dedham?
Yes. It was the first time I entered the courtroom in Dedham. And I didn't think I was going to get picked.
So why didn't you think, first of all, you said you didn't want to get picked. Now, why didn't you think you would get picked in the first place?
Because I was trying to be home by 12. So, but it didn't happen that way. I got picked at 11:45.
Now, you were telling me that you knew a little bit about the case going in, but you kind of played dumb because you didn't want to get picked. And did that serve you, or did that serve the prosecution and defense?
It backfired on me because I was the first one picked. So, yeah.
So it took 15 days to seat this jury. Can you talk a little bit about the makeup of the jury itself? You know, the number of men, the number of women, some of their backgrounds, if you got to know them?
It was 9 men, 9 women, 3 black, 2 Hispanic, and the rest was Caucasian. So, yeah.
So I would offer to bet that You were probably the only juror who'd been selected who had actually seen violent crime up close and personal. I want to talk about, where you grew up and how you grew up, Charlie?
I was born and raised in Bromley Heath Projects in Jamaica Plain in the early 80s. I'm number 6 out of 7 kids in my family. We all lived in, like a 5-bedroom, and there was always shootings, whatever you want to say, outside my window. My father kind of sheltered us from a lot of it, but it was at a point where me and my brothers used to kind of figure out what gun that was or whatever. Oh, is that
Just
a
by
nine?
the sound of the
By
gunshot?
the sound or whatever. We at times it got really bad where we had to sleep next to the wall and lower our beds and stuff, so there wouldn't be stray bullets or anything coming through our windows. Yeah.
So, you were a youngster during the time of the infamous Charles Stewart case, when a married white husband murdered his pregnant wife and then blamed it on a black man. Now, what did it feel like, dealing with Boston cops who were turning around every urban neighborhood in the city at that time?
Well, it was scary for my dad, my mom's, because at that time I was probably like 10 years old, but when I was 10 years old, I was also 5'10". So I didn't look like a little boy or a 10-year-old boy. I looked like a man. So my other 2 brothers, we always would walk together so we wouldn't, if one got in trouble, other one ran, other one stayed. So we always, if we even went to the store, we went anywhere outside, it was 3 of us. Or same thing with my sisters and everything. It was 3 of us, we leave out or whatever. But in the height of like the Charles Stewart case, it was scary because they was targeting black men. And a lot of us, did we get stopped? Yes, we got stopped multiple times. Where you going? Where you coming from? Do you live around here? And this is the cops and everything, so.
And then when you learned that it was actually a husband who had blamed an African American for the murder of his pregnant wife, how did you feel about that after being harassed on the street so long?
I just felt like it was just another day in a certain way, because it's from what I used to deal with in the projects of getting stopped and harassed by, and we didn't have normal like police officers. It was BHA, Bromley Heath authorities. It was what do you call it? We had our own police for the projects, and it wasn't Boston Housing Authorities didn't come in until '99 or whatever after the big raid and everything, but they had their own police authority. They had a couple of cops that always would harass us and stuff like that if you walk through a certain building or anything like that. So it was always you watching someone either get slammed to the ground, when the term was a high tech to the neck. So they would put their boot on your neck so you won't move so they could search you and stuff. So this was just something I was privy to. It was like normal to me in a certain aspect, but just another day in the projects.
Just another day in the projects, and you really kind of had to, defend yourself, protect your friends.
Well, yeah, it was more or less like you watch what you say to certain people and certain cops that was there, so there was, in that raid, a lot of those cops was dealing and doing everything inside the projects also. But
So the cops were the criminals oftentimes in that case.
So that's just a different story. But
So let's get back to the Reed case here. So Judge Bev Canoni selected you to serve as jury foreman. Why do you think she did that?
I don't know, but from what I heard, they select the first one but maybe she thought I wasn't gonna be able to sway the rest of them or whatever. But I mean, I didn't take one note. I didn't have to after the first witness. It was just like, oh, okay, I see where this is going. So, as we all know, you can smell bullshit from a mile away, but but that's what it was. And then after the first one, not even knowing that if the guy had a coat on or not, and you're EMT and you don't know if a guy has a coat on, and hypothermia and all this other stuff, it was just fishy already to me.
So you got to visit the crime scene, 34 Fairview Road in Canton. What did you notice about the crime scene that you thought was a little unusual?
Well, they was trying to direct us towards looking at the house, looking at the back of the car, and looking at the height of the car, looking at the ledge that sticks out. I mean, the spoiler that sticks out from the back of the car. And I was focused on the berm that was on the ground. And I was like, if she's supposed to back up and hit him with force, and she would have had to stop, or you would have heard a screech, and none of that was said. There was a screech or anything. No one ran out the house hearing her, got him getting hit or anything like that. It was just like, there's more to this story. And I just was like, it was more like Karen, prosecution. And
you noticed a rock on the property, right, that you thought was a little
there was
suspicious?
a rock on the property, but we were supposed to strike that from our minds or whatever it was, but that didn't leave my mind still, because the rock said Albert on it. I was like, if they sold the house.
This was years after they sold the house.
If they already sold the house, then why would someone keep the name of Albert in their front lawn? But that was the very next day. She said, "Oh, strike that from the evidence or whatever." So
and wasn't the rock discolored as well?
It was kind of, it had a brown tint to it, and it looked like it was some kind of blood or something was on it. But once again, they told us to strike it from. So I didn't even put that into my process of even when we went in there to deliberate or anything.
Now, talk a little bit about the weather that night. Now, everybody that's followed the case, we've seen some of the surveillance video or the crime scene video, and it looks like a torrential snowstorm, but you're saying that snow didn't really get heavy until, early in the morning while O'Keefe's body was out there, or after that, rather.
Yeah, when the meteorologist came and he said the snow, at the time he got hit, it was like supposed to be 0.2, and then probably at 3 o'clock it was supposed to be 0.3, and then the accumulation really got up to like around 4:30, 5 o'clock, where the heavy snow started coming down at like 2 inches at a time or whatever. And then the snow stopped at around like 7 o'clock, around like 7:45 or something like that in the morning, after the body was already taken away. So it was still snowing when the body was there and everything. But the body's temperature was 80 degrees when they found him.
Okay, and what did that tell you?
That told me that body wasn't there. At the time, it wasn't there for 6 hours. It was no way it was there for 6 hours. Because even with the wind chill factor was the wind was 30 miles an hour, and the wind was 30 miles an hour, but it was 27 degrees outside, and for frostbite to settle in, it only takes a half an hour after if it's under a certain degree. If the wind is under the 32 degrees or something like that. So he had no frostbite on his hands. He was fine. And he didn't die from hypothermia. So
it's your belief that the body was placed there after John O'Keefe was killed?
I believe so. But that didn't come until like after the trial, and me looking at so many different videos and everything else and putting that together. But during the trial, I just was waiting and just looking for that aha moment, and there was none to make her guilty at all. It was just always like, oh, that witness sucked. So it was like, okay, oh, that's a lie. That's a lie. And it was just witness after witness after witness. And the only credible person I could say was probably Mrs. O'Keefe.
I was just going to mention that, right? So, we can't lose sight here that John O'Keefe was killed, a Boston police officer, and Peggy O'Keefe, John's mother, took the stand, and it was the first time that she had ever spoken in public. Do you kind of remember what she said or what the impact her words had on the jury?
I can't really remember what she said, but it was just the feel of the mother being up there and just she was broken up already trying to even talk about her daughter who passed and also her son-in-law who passed away, and then seeing her really break down when she's talking about John. And I still had to hold myself together and understand, like, hey, I'm just gonna go with the evidence still. I know I want justice for this mother, but at the same time, also need justice for if this woman is not the person that killed him. So I still went along slowly but surely. Nothing still gave me that aha moment till the end of the trial. So
you talk a little bit about the witnesses here. In early May, you and the jury listened to several angry voicemails that Karen Reed left for John O'Keefe. So you're getting to hear Karen Reed herself, even though she wasn't put on the witness stand. She said, "John, I effing hate you." Did hearing, the vitriol in her voice shape your opinion of her anyway?
Well, I listened to all the text messages and in the chat, whatever it was.
Text from Karen to
from
John,
Karen
correct?
to John, and even if you look at it, it's like how many people here have boyfriends and you pissed off at them and you don't know what they're doing or whatever, and you leave those text messages. A lot of y'all could be put up for murder then if it's like that, but it was not. It's just a woman that's trying to find out. Even with the earlier text, it's just a woman just trying to find out where she stands in the relationship. And even she was yelling, screaming, whatever it was just her being upset. It wasn't really necessarily her being jealous or anything like that. It was a lot of shady stuff going on. He didn't come back out the house. She was pissed. She had to go to the bathroom, so she went home.
What was her demeanor in the courtroom itself? You got to see her every day. How did you think she held up during the trial?
Well, she had this consistent snarl and look at each witness. And I just was like, in the beginning of the trial, I was like, I got to figure out what that face really means. I work with kids every day, that at-risk kids, and you don't get to see their true face, and you got to break all these layers to get even a piece of who they are or whatever it is. So I was looking for what did that face mean, and why did she look at all these people this way? And then it came to my realization, like, because she's like, y'all fucking lying to me. Y'all lying to me. Y'all lying to me. Y'all lying about me and everything. So it was just a person that was just fed up with everybody lying to her or about her and stuff. So then I was just, once again, I just went with whatever evidence Brendan was trying to present and everything. So.
And, there was a piece of evidence that you thought Hank Brennan, the special prosecutor, had talked about, but you kind of didn't think that was accurate, some of the stuff he was talking about.
Well, that was kind of towards the end of the trial when was it Wolf? I think it was Wolf. He was up there, and from ARCA, and he showed him the shirt after we went and seen the video of how.
And this is the shirt that O'Keefe was wearing?
His hoodie that he was wearing, and the extra holes in the back, but it really was from the forensic person that was getting pieces of his hoodie. That's what it ended up to be. But when it actually initially happened, we was called to go back for a recess, and then I didn't know until like probably a couple of months ago that Lassie, he was trying to get a mistrial off of it because of how egregious it was and how he was trying to taint the jury pool and everything. So didn't know that until afterwards, but already after that point that we had to come back into court and then him have to apologize that this wasn't evidence. It was a medical examiner cutting it and trying to figure it out.
So he apologized to the jury?
Yes. So
let's go back to April 2025. Key witness Jen McCabe takes the stand. She's questioned about her Google search, which is how long to die in the cold. Did you find her testimony credible?
How long to die in the cold. But yeah, I mean, even with Whiffen, when he did his whole thing about the Celebrite and everything with the phone, oh, if you bring up something, it's gonna be from there, whatever. But yet and still he didn't say definitively that it couldn't be. And I was like, no one's given me still solid evidence. And I'm like, if he was like, yeah, this is when it happened, and this is what happened, yeah, I would have been like, okay, that's one strike, but there still wasn't a strike because himself, just like so many other experts, couldn't even say that she hit him with the car. So.
Now, was there anything else that Jen McCabe said while she was testifying that you found to be curious?
Oh, well, a lot of her
Give me your
stuff.
top three.
She lied to the agency, FBI.
And how did you find out about that?
That I found out right then, because they were saying they wouldn't say FBI, they would say agency, and not slow. I understood what other agency would be investigating this case. So I was like, okay, agency. And she automatically said, oh, what was it? Oh, I didn't know who was there or something. And she was trying to, and she said her explanation was, I didn't get to brush my teeth. I just woke up and all this other stuff. And I was like, I could use that? Does that work? And when you're talking to the FBI, I was like, okay, I see. But again, but then how Jackson kind of.
The defense attorney, Alan Jackson.
He led her on the path like she was being able to tell the truth and everything, and then got her again. Because she started with, when you went back into the house, and did you talk to anyone? And she was like, no, I only talked to 3 people. And he was like, only 3 people? And then she's like, yes, it was only 3 people. And then she recanted her story again, saying, and Jackson was like, but it was 5. And didn't you call your husband? And then she also called Proctor or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's another strike. All right. So the case was leaning one way, and it kept on leaning one way, and up until the very end. So,
did the jurors find it curious that nobody inside the house on Fairview came outside while you had a host of police officers attending the body of John O'Keefe?
Not initially. When we was deliberating, yes, we all found like it was very odd that no one went into the house and no one was able to even any pictures of the garage, any pictures of the door of the garage, any of it, we was not privy to looking at, talking about, or anything. So
what you were privy to, and what the observers of the case outside the courtroom weren't, were the actual crime scene and autopsy photos. Can you talk a little bit about the condition of John O'Keefe's body when you saw those photos?
Well, initially I was like, let me hear from the forensic person who worked on his body afterwards, even she said there was inconclusive evidence that he was hit by a car. And I was like, okay. And then you look at his arm and the 32 abrasions on the arm, but only 9 entries in the sweater. So it's like, what are we doing here? Like, how are you supposed to have 32 pieces of shattered tail light go through nine holes and make all those scratches and stuff? So it was like, okay. And then Chloe. So
Yeah, let's talk about Chloe the dog for a moment. First of all, this dog, or missing dog, now rivals Stephen King's Cujo as the most terrifying pet in American history. Karen Reed's attorneys argued that the injuries to O'Keefe's arms were consistent with dog bites. A defense witness, Dr. Marie Russell, said that was the case. Did the jury believe her testimony?
We were still on the fence with the dog. Well, not the dog bites, more or less, because they was going back and forth. Is she a credible witness or whatever? It was like, I don't even have to lean on the dog bites or anything. All the other evidence and everything else is already telling the true story. So, and basically with the dog bites, is like, what happened to the dog? Where's the dog at? Why didn't we someone go and figure out with forensics of the teeth and everything? And none of that was able, because they didn't get rid of it. They rehoused the dog. So.
And that was just basically right after O'Keefe's death, correct?
From what I heard, the daughter took the dog and whatever, and it got rehoused twice. So, and then they changed the dog's name also.
Witness protection for pets, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, one witness that you didn't hear from in the second trial was Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor. Now, we all heard him in the first trial recite those horrible text messages about her. In the second trial, his sergeant testified, and that got pretty intense. Do you feel that the defense's assertion of police corruption in this case, both from the Canton police and the state police, was accurate and warranted?
Very accurate. At the time, I was open-minded. I was willing to listen to both sides. If she hit him, or if there is corruption, and then the corruption outweighed her hitting him with the car. So it was kind of like any of us going to trial, and you had all those evidence and everything else. Yeah, we're going to jail. It's just that simple.
So you think it was police officers protecting police officers in this case?
Oh, for sure. All up and down the whole thing. So, and it's kind of sad, but it's true. But you got to think about it. They're protecting their brothers, and they're willing to do whatever to protect their brothers.
That gets me to my next point here. I want to talk about your opinion of former Boston police officer Kelly Dever. She's the former Canton police officer.
No, Dever.
Oh, Dever, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Thank you.
She'll jump on you on that one.
That's right. Yeah. She's the former Canton PD officer who recanted her claim that she saw ATF agent Brian Higgins spending a lot of time with Reed's SUV in the Sally Port garage. Talk a little bit about her testimony and what that revealed to you and the rest of the jurors.
Well, we already seen the video of the Sally Port, and then to hear her testimony, it was just like, oh, here we go. It matched perfectly for corruption. Not even corruption, just witness evidence tampering.
So the video, in your opinion, was manipulated?
Well, the video was definitely manipulated, because if you look at the video that they showed us in court, it started at like 5:15 and then it jumped to 5:50. And I was like, so where's the rest of the video? And I was like, okay. And they didn't say anything else about it, and we moved on with the trial, and then we hear Dever. And I was like, oh, so now this makes more sense and everything, and now I don't really have to put two and two together. Here it is.
And then Deborah gets up on the stand and claims that that was all a false memory.
Yes, a false memory, because she spoke to an agency and they told her that it was a false memory, so you don't have to testify to that. And that she left at 3:45. And she wasn't even there at the time that they was supposedly in the Sally Port. But if you was doing overtime, anyone could fix your timesheet if they really wanted to, but here nor there. But
Now, she eventually transferred to the Boston Police Department, and it was reported that before her testimony, Boston Police Commissioner Michael Cox told her, quote, "Do the right thing." What do you think he meant by that?
that could mean one or two things. One, do the right thing for your brothers, or do the right thing and just say what it is, and and take the heat for whatever happens afterwards. In which she did the right thing for her brothers.
That's what you thought?
I think she thought she was doing the right thing for her brothers, but in the end, she messed up her own self.
Now, she later resigned. And before that, though, Reed's attorney, Alan Jackson, who we've been talking about, petitioned to have her placed on the Brady list. Now, the Brady list is a compilation of law enforcement officers with credibility issues when it comes to testifying in court. Do you think that, and then he later asked that, most of the Boston police officers be put on the Brady list. How do you think he was overreaching there, or is that a serious problem?
Well, yeah, he wasn't reaching. It's the truth, because even when Cox got interviewed later, he denied it, that he even knew about the case. I knew little about the case and everything, but who doesn't know about the case? After the second trial, who doesn't know about this case? So it just was also... It
was the biggest case in America. How could you not know about this case?
And so that was another thing, you could have just said, well, no comment. But you had to say, I didn't know nothing about the case. You would have cleared all this up with saying no comment. But he wanted no parts of it. So that's what I kind of picked up on.
So both sides finally rest their case. They give their closing arguments, and deliberations begin on June 16th. Take us inside the jury room. Talk about a little bit about the evidence that the panel had to weigh the most with regard to the guilt or innocence of Karen Reed.
So when we got in there on Friday, it was Friday afternoon, and it was around 2:30, and one of the other jurors had to leave at 4, so it wasn't much time to really deliberate. And then we have this room full of evidence that's been compiled over so many years, and now we're supposed to figure it out. So I'm like, wow. So we focused on everybody wanted to touch the tail light. We all got to touch the tail light and look at the tail light and see how it was tampered and everything with. And we all came to the conclusion was yeah, this is way different than the taillight we seen on the ARCA report, and their speed was 27 miles an hour, and hers supposedly speed was 24 miles an hour, and it was why is there way more damage to this one than the 27 miles per hour one? And we was just and the first day we did not take a vote, but on Monday we took a vote. And
did any of the jurors think that it was plausible that Karen Reed did hit John O'Keefe with her car?
There was several ones that wanted to dive more deeply into the evidence to answer their questions. And there was 3 of them that there was particles on the clothing, and how did that particle on the clothing get there versus from the tail light and everything. And I was if you really look at it and if you think about it, everything was in process for 6 months. How do you have a police officer's clothes that just was murdered and you don't process it right away? You took 6 months to process his clothes. When we looked at the paper bag, it said June 11th or something or June 12th. And I'm like, 6 months later? I was like, right there, if you already have mysteriously 42 pieces of taillight, and now you don't think someone could break up a couple of little pieces and sprinkle it on clothing to make sure it corroborates with the evidence that's going on with it, whatever. And after some time, that juror was like, you're right. So then the next piece was, the next juror that was upset was the one with, she wanted to know when was the first piece found. And I was like, oh, okay. So we went through video footage and we tried to go into evidence, but the first piece wasn't found until 5:50. So she was like, oh, it's not found until 5:50. And she's like, well, when was the car in the Sally Port? The car was in the Sally Port at 5:39. But I think it was in there earlier than that. But it was at 5:39, and it only took 3 minutes to get from the police station to Fairview. So that's more than enough time to plant a piece of evidence.
So June 18th, 2025, it's the fourth day of deliberations. You finally reach your verdict. What was the mood inside the jury room and the courtroom when that verdict was announced?
Oh, it was heavy because at one thing I didn't want to like give this exciting not guilty, and then to see moms and brother and the dad over there, and
so you were thinking about the victims too.
And I was like, I'm not just gonna. I know this is definitely a celebration for Karen, but at the same time, this is heartbreaking for a mother. Now I don't even have a person to blame for all this misfortune in my life. But it was just like, so I went there and I was trying to be monotone when I gave out the verdict of not guilty. But even when that happened, I mean, it was intense because before I got to the last not guilty, the crowd erupted. It was already cheering like it was a basketball stadium outside and everything. And I was like, oh, and we was asked a couple of more questions, and so say you, and then he asked us we went to the, back to where we deliberated, and there was several people crying, and there was just a kind of overwhelming feel in the room,
So a few days after that verdict, Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan said flat out that you got the verdict wrong, saying that your decision threatened the integrity of our judicial system. What would you say to Hank Brennan if he were in this audience today?
No, we didn't get it wrong. You just didn't have the right evidence, and you didn't have the right witnesses that could convict her. And that's really what it was. And the integrity, it's already been tainted a long time ago with all the police officers and all the text messages and everything else. That's what shreds the integrity. So
this case is far from over, and its ripple effects continue to spread. First, disgraced trooper Michael Proctor tried to get his job back, then gave up his fight after thousands of disturbing texts were found on his cell phone relating to other cases. Now as many as 20 other prosecutions are in jeopardy, including the murder of Anna Walsh in Cohasset, allegedly at the hands of her own husband. How do you think Proctor's behavior in those cases will impact future juries?
Well, because it shows a lot of implicative bias on his side, and just I didn't read any of those text messages, but
if they're similar to the ones that you heard in the Karen Reed trial,
it's not too good for him. So
and it's not too good for the prosecutions
no.
in those other cases as well.
So anything he touched is right now tainted. It's all going to be questioned.
Karen Reed, as we all know, still faces a civil trial in the murder of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. The bar regarding responsibility is set much lower in a civil trial. We saw that in the 1990s with the O.J. Simpson trial. Simpson was found not guilty in a criminal court, but was later found responsible for the murders of his wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ronald Goldman. How do you think the Karen Reed civil trial will fare?
I hope it doesn't fare the same way, because if she didn't hit him and she didn't kill your son, why are you going after her? You should be going after whoever really killed your son.
So isn't that what you've been stressing since the end of the trial, that there is a killer still out there that needs to be prosecuted?
Yes. And it just doesn't seem like anyone's caring about what happened in that house. No one is.
So that case is still open because there wasn't a conviction.
Yes.
But do you think it's active?
Do I think that someone's still looking into the case?
Right.
Probably not really, until they have to, and until they're up under that microscope where they have to get results. But if no one is really trying to get results, but what Jackson did in the civil trial is he countersued all of them.
All of them.
So
put them on the defensive.
Exactly. So now they have to try to prove their innocence.
So going back to your personal experience, did the Karen Reed trial leave you with a positive or a negative feeling about our judicial system?
You already know the answer. It's very negative. I'm not, I mean,
we've got some young criminal justice students here in this crowd. What would you tell them? Give up or keep fighting?
Well, it takes one to make a change, so I say keep fighting regardless of the fact, because, I could have easily swayed with the prosecution and just listened to what they had to say and what was ever in front of me and go against the grain, don't care, just,
follow the evidence?
Yeah, all the evidence, look at it, make sure it's right, but it's a messed up, corrupted system that's been way before I was born, or way before any of us was born, that's been implanted into the system. So
now you've got an incredible story to tell, and you've shared a little bit about that with us today. I understand that you're working on a book. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that process and where you are?
Right now we're in the early stages of the book, or just trying to shop it around and everything, but it's basically detailing my life.
So it's going to be part memoir and part Karen Reed trial.
Karen Reed trial, yes.
Well, you know what? Let's give another round of applause for Mr. Charlie DeLoach. We have time for a few questions, so if anybody in the audience wants to raise their hand. George Regan, yes.
Obviously, Charlie passed away. Mother, family, were upset. So who was the killer?
George Regan just asked the number one question here. This is like a Knives Out scenario. Who is the killer, in your opinion? You may not want to say that.
Well,
Brian Higgins?
It could be Brian Higgins, could be the son. It could have been even an accident, but they overplayed the scenario and the situation. It could be multiple things, but.
Do you think if she was charged with manslaughter, not second-degree murder, would it have been more likely that she would have been found guilty?
Yes, yeah, because then she would have not felt like it was she could overcome that.
And some of the jurors might have been more swayed toward that.
Because it was a lesser of a charge than murder and stuff, so.
She was convicted. One of the charges was operating under the influence, and I know you had a role in deciding that. Talk a little bit about that.
So day 4 of deliberations, we went in there, and we already took a tally of does anyone feel like that she actually hit him with the car? No. We even had like poster boards around the deliberating room where it was what was it? Reasonable doubt, manslaughter, and all these charges and everything. And we even what an OUI is, and we had 4 jurors, 2 wanted to convict her of the OUI, and 2 was relentless of not charging with any of it. I also didn't want to charge her anything. If we didn't find her guilty of hitting him, I didn't want to charge her with nothing. But I knew, and also the other 2 jurors knew, that the other 2 was going to hang the jury if she didn't get charged with OUI. So I was willing to sway and say, at least it's a lesser charge, and a year of whatever, of probation or whatever, is a slap on the wrist. But the other gentleman, he looked at the whole charges. He's like, she could look at 2 years in jail if she was convicted of even OUI or whatever, and being her first offense or whatever. And when that happened, he was the one. We actually had a verdict, and we was like, oh, it was probably around like 11:55. We had the verdict in, and they said the pizza's here. So we was like, oh, we're gonna eat first before we give them the verdict. So we was gonna eat. We was eating. The verdict, I signed both of them. I signed all 3 of them. They was under my pizza, and I looked over at one of the jurors, good friend of mine's now, and I looked at him, and he looked distraught, and he still was like weighing on, like, and he gave me that. I looked over, and he gave a sigh, and I said, "What's up? You okay?" And then he looked at me. He said, "Could I take back my vote?" So at that time, I heard a lot of sucking of teeth and a lot of sighs in the room, like, what's going on here? And I know a lot of eyes was on me, like, tell him no, tell him no, tell him no. And I was like, wait, let me talk to the bailiff. And I talked to the bailiff. The bailiff's like, no, fine, no, it's okay, take your time. And if you come back with, and take your time with your decision, I'm gonna go talk to the judge and everything. He went to go back, talk to the judge, and he said, so your verdict, the first verdict that you had, put it in an envelope, we're gonna seal it, and we can give it to the judge. No one's gonna look at it or whatever. But within 20 minutes after him overlooking some evidence and stuff, he went with guilty also for OUI,
So it is a negotiation when you're in that room, especially when you have several different charges that you have to weigh against each other.
Yes.
Any other questions? President Rich, he gets first priority.
Thank you. One of the things I read was that they filled in the swimming pool. Was that ever presented as evidence in the house?
No, none of that. Not even the house, not even the doors, nothing. Nothing was. Anything dealing with the house was off limits. We didn't get to see in the house. We didn't get to see in the garage.
Even in your jury view, they didn't take
we
you into
didn't
the
get
house?
the view of outside the house.
Okay.
They didn't even want us to look at the house. Only thing we was privy to was the hydrant, the flagpole, and the front lawn, and the berm. That's it.
Any other questions, folks? Yes.
How did the judge and attorneys help ensure that the jurors remain impartial and unbiased despite extensive media coverage?
Well, we was transported, and we went in we all met at a certain area. I can't say where because they still probably use it. But we met at a certain area where state troopers and a big charter bus was there. I got dropped off every morning and we was shuttled to the courthouse afterwards.
So you weren't sequestered for
No.
the
it
trial?
wasn't. No.
Okay. One more question?
I have a question. If the dog Chloe, if they just took the DNA of the dog, wouldn't they have known that the dog would have been part of the?
So the question is, if either side had taken the DNA, or the investigators rather, had taken the DNA of the dog named Chloe, wouldn't they be able to match that with potentially the blood of John O'Keefe?
Well, they did test the so-called bite marks on the sweater, and they found pork on it. So, but it could have been pork rind, which a dog bite, which a dog treat or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But here nor there, you know, they didn't really even go into that too much either, because anything dealing with the dog or the house or anything Albert, we really didn't go over in the case.
So you felt like you had your arms tied behind your back in much of this trial?
Especially with the house, yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
You had a student.
Yep.
You mentioned at the beginning, you said you hoped you weren't selected to be jury. Has being selected left any impact on your life and being part of this case?
Well, first, my wife signed me up. She literally signed the paper and everything. And I was trying to dodge, I'm not gonna lie, I was trying to dodge jury duty once again. Suffolk County, they never got me. Norfolk County got me. But, and I mean, it hasn't really impacted my life at all in large part. I mean, I was out once at a Rebs game, and a guy came up to me like a week after the trial, and he was like, "Dude, this you?" And at first I was like, "Wait a minute, this could be good or bad right now." So I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "All right," you know what I'm saying? He's like, "I'm not gonna blow up your spot. I'm not gonna blow up your spot, but great job, great job." So that's the closest I got so far.
So you haven't had any threats or comments
no comments
line?
on the websites and everything. It was all good, much love and everything. I never got no backlash or anything.
All right, George, one more.
If John O'Keefe's mother was sitting in this room, what would their message be to Mrs. O'Keefe?
What would Charlie's message be to John O'Keefe's mother?
Keep fighting, but it's hard because the evidence that you have compiled for your son has already been tainted by just shoddy police work. So it just sucks, and I feel for you because you may never get an answer.
So she should be blaming, in a sense, some of the investigators that didn't do their jobs?
Who didn't do their jobs, or who thought they could cover it up and put it on somebody else.
All right. Yeah, one more, Steve?
I know you said earlier that you've lost some confidence in the justice system. Now that you were on a jury and the trial went, obviously where you felt it should have gone, right, not guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Did at least the trial establish some confidence back?
Well, established for myself in a certain way because I felt, I felt that if I didn't kind of press forth and try to look past all the veil of whatever the prosecution was trying to put in front of us so we get an innocent person convicted, I don't know, it's just sad in a certain way because there's a lot of us that's gonna fall victim to this.
But for anybody in the audience, Charlie, that might be chosen for a jury, especially a murder trial, what advice would you give to them?
No matter what, innocent until proven guilty. and start with that.
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes.
So the threshold is higher for the prosecution than it is for the defense in every case.
Yes. So,
Okay. All right, Mr. Charlie DeLoach, everybody. I'm Casey Sherman. Thank you, President Rich. Have a great afternoon, everyone.